Welcome to the Grow Your Money podcast, where we're on a mission to change how we talk about money. Our fireside chats are the heart of our show, bringing the energy and excitement of in-person events straight to your ears. We aim to connect you with inspiring voices and stories that matter, sharing relatable experiences and insights that will transform your financial life. Everyone deserves access to practical financial knowledge, so we're making money conversations relatable by inviting guests from all walks of life to share their real-life experiences with money. But this isn't your typical money show. We look at the emotional, psychological, and cultural factors that shape our relationship with money. So hit subscribe and join us for another episode of the Grow Your Money podcast.
Welcome to this episode of the Grow Your Money Challenge. We're going to be talking about income maximization this time. So lovely to have you guys again. I'm Tynah Matembe, the founder of MoneyMatiX and the Grow Your Money Challenge, where we are helping people to maximize their income, but using your financial goals and your place in life to try and help you budget and sort of get out of debt and meet your financial goals, basically thrive with money. So I'm delighted to be joined by Muna, Nina, and Jonathan. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us.
My name is Jonathan Sentamu, and I work with Nkula Wellness, which is an organization, community-based organization that supports people in various ways around fitness, mental health, and also looking after their, financial issues if they have been, put forward. So really, that's part of, what we do.
Fantastic. Hello, I'm Nina Mohanty. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Blue Money, which is a fintech company that looks after diaspora communities. Thank you for having me back.
Brilliant. Hi, I'm Muna Yasin. I'm the CEO of Fair Money Advice, and we are a specialist pan-London debt advice charity, really helping people through hard times and kind of bringing them back to financial thriving situations. So again, lovely to be back.
Thank you guys for joining me. And I'll dive right in. It's just such a crazy time right now. Literally, help. Everything is going up. The fuel, the food, everything is going up. So help me. Jonathan, what are you finding in the communities? Because you're very grassroots based and, you kind of down at the grassroots levels. What are you finding is what I'm saying, right? Or
I think it's very complicated for people at the moment. Of course, the cost of living is driving everything, mad for people. They can't navigate their journeys around, managing their finances, people in arrears. Some people who had, jobs because of, various issues, they find themselves in debt because they can't sustain an employment. And at times, COVID has, facilitated a lot of things to happen, especially around mental health. And when people are not working, that means they are in debt. Yes, they can be able to afford, get on benefits, but it's not enough. And, speaking from an African background, a lot of people would still, have two lives, spending money for themselves here, but at the same time trying to send back home. And for some people, they are the welfare state for their families back home. So whether they like it or not, whichever little they have here, they have to send some of it back home to help with either parents who are unwell, siblings who are going to school. And those are the kind of issues that continue to, affect people here in this current situation.
And it's just really sad. And the thing is, it's not just you have family abroad. It's all the factors coming together. There's wars going on. There's weather issues. There's just so many things, going on. And I just wonder, so from Nina, looking at the current climate right now, but thinking about financial resilience as a whole, what can you say to that? What should we be doing?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? I was reading recently that I think 30% of NHS nurses are not prepared for a financial shock, and in fact are also going to food banks. I think the Financial Times also reported that immigrants in particular, there's an uptick in going to food banks because, again, being responsible for a whole other household back home, for example. So yes, times are tough. And you mentioned food and petrol, but also rent and energy. Oh my goodness, we could talk about the price cap for days. So I think what I have had to do personally is have a very difficult conversation with myself. And I think in times of crisis, which let's face it, we are in, it's really difficult to want to shove it away and not want to face it head on. I found this myself. And actually, speaking personally, I felt so much anxiety just in the beginning of the year, end of last year, especially, winter months when the energy cost was so high. We're trying to buy gifts or, be generous with your family at the end of the year for whatever holidays. I could feel the physical, the stress of it, I was losing hair. And so I had to just sit down and book a money date with myself. So I poured myself a glass of wine and I started going through, and it's all of those very trite thing. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's not trite. It's all the things that we always say we're going to do but never get around to doing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I was going through and I was like, why do I have 2 Amazon subscriptions? I'm paying for 2 Amazon subscriptions. I'm using a yoga subscription I never use, little things like that. Now, obviously that's not going to make me a millionaire overnight. But then it was kind of taking a look at, okay, do I have any debts? Where are they? Yes. What is the current interest rate attached to these debts? Which I actually helped some of my friends take a hard look at as well. Right now, given the current inflationary environment, it doesn't really make sense for a lot of people to try and consolidate debt. But is there a better offer going where you can do that? The other thing is I was quite forgiving with myself because I've actually been quite open about this in the past. I dug myself out of a hole of $10,000 of debt in the past. And the entire time felt guilty for not saving. It really wore at me. It made me feel awful. I was, if anyone's watched Winnie the Pooh, I was Eeyore, and I had that dark cloud following me around. And I had to be forgiving with myself and actually say, right now, this hole of debt is growing. So actually, even with the current interest rates, which one makes more sense logically? And for different people, depending on your situation, the math will often work out differently. But for me, it was actually, let's get on top of this, and then we can be in a better financial position to think about saving. I'll end there because I feel like I should really pass on to the expert here.
Thank you for that. But I totally agree. I love what you've said about having a money date with yourself. And it's interesting that the lots of things that we put off for so long. So you have a Netflix subscription, you have an Amazon subscription. And I remember when I moved here, one thing that was a pet hate of mine was there was 6 families that lived around me and each of us had a Costco card. And I'm like, guys, we need Costco, but 6 of us?
Yeah.
And everyone is like, do we each need it? And they're like, oh no, it's not allowed for you to go into Costco with my card. Then I thought, right, but that's just not fair. So I literally phoned up Costco and they said, well, if you have a business, you can take out a Costco business card and it gives you access to 6 cards. So I was like, guys, bring that money over here. Let's do it together, But it took me having a debt with my money and thinking, I go to Costco just 4 times a year. Do I need this? But I really love the croissants at Costco, so I really want to go.
So it's essential.
It is essential. It's a need. But it's just having that money date with yourself allows you to reflect, to sit down and just think about, do I really need this? Okay, if I want it, how else can I solve the problem? So I really love that. I love that.
You're listening to the Grow Your Money podcast. We'll be right back after giving our partners a well-deserved shout-out. Calling all partners, join the Grow Your Money Challenge. We're excited to present our incredible sponsors who believe in empowering individuals and communities on their financial journey. Discover their services and join us in creating a brighter financial future. Featuring the Royal Bank of Scotland, your trusted banking partner with a rich heritage and comprehensive financial services. Explore their online banking at www.rbs.co.uk. Gift Round. Make group gifting a breeze. Celebrate special occasions together with colleagues, friends, and family. Create a gift round at giftround.co.uk and show your appreciation. Radiant and Brighter, promoting diversity and economic participation in migrant communities. Get involved with their innovative practices at radiantandbrighter.com. Rooted Finance. Struggling with debt or financial exclusion? Rooted Finance provides free money and debt advice services to put you on the path to financial freedom. Join the Grow Your Money Challenge in this transformative journey toward financial growth and resilience. Visit MoneyMatiX.com to get involved today.
So now we'll pass over to the expert indeed.
I would say that you spoke like an expert. So glad to be here again. Muna Yasin, CEO of Money Advice, obviously, and just thinking about the debt perspective. I think for me, you described beautifully the emotions that people go through. So the anxiety, the realization, the putting off, the then pulling yourself back together and saying, I have to do something about this. And most people go through that at a much more acute level. If you are in a cost of living crisis for most of your life, so we work with some of the most financially vulnerable communities. And we're all understanding what a cost of living crisis is today. But unfortunately, people have been living under those conditions for over a decade since the first financial crash. And then to think about the impact that then has on top of already people who have had their financial resilience crash through the floor, and the impact that has on people's mental health, and the lack of services to support people. So it's amazing to think about that you're actually linking financial health and mental health and can see the linkages there. And I think one of the things that we would always advise is, number one, take that first step. Either have the money date with yourself, and if you have the capability, be able to go through your income and expenditure. Think about where you can increase your income. That may be benefits, that may be grants, side hustles, whatever the case may be. And then look at how you can reduce your expenditure. So thinking about the extra Netflix or the outside coffees. Are you able to take lunch yourself? And really thinking about what are your priority financial commitments. So there are things that are fixed that unfortunately we all have to pay and there's nothing we can do about it. So your utilities, your rent, your council tax, these are fixed costs that you can't get out of. But you have some control on other areas, so really focus on those areas to kind of bring those costs down. And then the other thing I would say is, if you're not able to do that, speak to organizations that are free and that are impartial and that can give you that advice. But at the same time, think about you're not alone. So there should be no shaming or blaming yourself. And there should be a point where you think about, what am I entitled to? Because there are lots of rights and obligations from these organizations around how they should be supporting you and how they should be getting you through this. So how you speak to people to help you navigate that, I think, is so important. And yeah, the first thing I would say is, don't leave it too late. Speak to someone, and that support can be brought in for you.
Absolutely. And I think that speaking to someone is really, really key. I wonder, Jonathan, when you're, going into a community, you're working with someone specifically, and this linkage between financial well-being and mental health and well-being and speaking to someone, are you finding it's accessible to? Because I remember just trying to think about who am I supposed to go to? Is anyone responsible? Does anyone care? And how do you go about that? Or how do you advise people to, navigate those areas? Because they're very interlinked. What you're saying, Nina, like you hold yourself, you feel so guilty, you're down. Your financial well-being is very much linked to your mental health.
Yeah, no, I think for me it's a really test for many people. It's so difficult for people to firstly understand how systems work. we come from backgrounds where systems are broken down. There's actually really no suitable services for people. And when you come here, there is a lot of support, but it's how people access that support. There's a difference between signposting somebody to a service and actually that individual taking up that service.
100%.
At times, many people we work with, have difficulties around just explaining what it is. And if it's financial, it's really so difficult that people prefer not even to say it because they don't want even to look at their balance sheets. They don't want to see their negative. They don't want to see, letters coming through from council tax and all that. And what that means is they accumulate a lot of debt and they're actually fearful of getting the support they need. And by the time they try to access that support, it's too late. So culturally, I think, for me, we have a duty and we're on the journey to support individuals to make sure actually they try to access those services. But financial services, I think for me, lack understanding of where people come from, the difficulties around, the different economies people come from. We come from a cash economy where you feel actually having cash in the pocket is, you know what you have.
Makes you feel good.
But many times you have a credit card, all what you do is swipe.
Yeah.
Before you know it,
Tap.
exactly. So that creates a burden for many people. And it's difficult for them to actually know when to stop, when to make those changes. And I think for me, it's really changing the attitudes and behaviors of people around finances. There is no education that, community-wise, that's allowing immigrants, for example, to make sure they understand the systems quicker. If you've got a credit card, you've got, let's say, for example, £2,000 you can spend, it's credit. You rush into, buying stuff you don't even need. But that's debt. You do it over and over and over. Before you know it, you accumulate a lot of debt. And that becomes so difficult for many people. So part of our work is really, to make sure we engage with these individuals to understand money sense, which sometimes for me is so difficult when somebody is in debt. There should be early interventions in areas of financial management for individuals. But unfortunately, that comes at the later stage when somebody is in difficulty, you're trying to help them, So it should be the other way around.
Prevention.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it's so difficult because you're working on limited resources to help these individuals. You yourself, at times, you're busy with your own, financial burdens. So the gap just grows and grows bigger and bigger.
Wow. Very interesting and very, very true. And I think as the gap widens, you become more differentiated. So you're going into, someone's telling you to budget and you're like, what
I know
are you
every
talking
last
about?
pound I have. And you're telling me to learn how to budget.
Absolutely. I posted something, some time back saying that actually you should look at those that have less to understand what budgeting means. Because when you're working, when you know that you have £5 and that £5 has to feed you, do the gas and electric, you are very good at budgeting. You're the expert,
Yeah.
So
But
very
also,
interesting.
part of the issue I think we have with financial systems is, they end up charging people a premium, things that people shouldn't be charged. And people don't know why they get, charged high interest rates. Some people may even fear going for a mortgage, not because they can't afford it, but there's no education around that. Somebody is earning so much, but because they've accrued a lot of, debt, all that money ends up, being taken away from them. And actually they are even scared to engage or even make a positive step towards building their credit score and making sure actually that doesn't happen again. They instead end up going in debt. They would borrow more money to fix a debt, and then they would borrow more money from other companies. But I think for me, that becomes a kind of a problem for people. They will never come out of that unless they get into, proper education, try to understand how you save, how you manage your money, the things we're talking about, it's really the simple behavior changes that needs to happen.
100%. I would agree. And I think that issue around prevention, why tackle a problem after the issue? And I think it's something we struggle in this country with. Like, we would rather pay for the cleanup than actually preventing it from happening. And I think, which is awful, but it's the truth. And I think one of the areas that really annoys me is that the education side, it's not culturally appropriate. So we have lots of tools around financial education, literacy, but actually if you don't have that nuance around different communities and what their needs are, and more importantly, like you say, what economies they've come from, what their money habits are, what their money priorities are, then you're not able to then, provide the right information, but also you, as financial institutions, you're not designing for your customer base. Because unless you understand your customer base, how can you design for them? And I think one of the areas that I'm most focused on, and I think we should stop shifting the blame onto the communities. We should start thinking about what are the systemic issues that if we want to make a difference at scale, because resources don't allow us to go out and educate everyone. How do we stop the misinformation or the misdesign of products to begin with? And I think that's a much easier problem to solve. And I think shifting it from the individual and the communities to the institutions and the regulators and the decision makers, I think that's where we should be going forward.
I could not agree more. You can only do so much as a person if the system is not serving you in the first place, can you? It's back to the budgeting thing. Like, what are you telling me to budget? I've got 5 quid. That's what I've got. How do I budget that, right? So
how do I make it
we
go
need to
longer? Absolutely.
And so on that note, then how would you advise, the community or people listening to prioritize? So I have a lot of debt. Don't have a lot coming in, but guess what? All the budgeting information, everything that comes in says I need to be saving. How do you take that first step, and where should people be looking to for support with that type of thing? Muna, you probably be.
Yeah.
So I would say, if we want people to get out of that cycle, we have to recognize that savings is as important as paying down debts, right? So obviously there is a imperative to pay down debts that are high interest. There is a hierarchy around what you pay first, depending on that interest level. But if we want people to have a financial cushion and to have a buffer and not be in a situation where they are really impacted by financial shocks like a pandemic, global pandemic, like a cost of living crisis, like a war. We've had a lot recently, clearly. You have to make sure that there is space for that. And part of that is some of the conversations that we're having with creditors. So when we're putting an income and an expenditure, we're arguing for our clients to have £5 to put away. And it's about making sure that that is institutionalized within the sector to recognize that savings is a good financial behavior. But also thinking about if we are helping people save in more innovative ways. So is there a way that we could scrape 1 penny here, to just make it really simple using technology to make it stealth saving and giving people the options to do that? So I think we can utilize technology better as well.
And actually, I have a question on that, because many people ask me, this whole conversation around debt consolidation, does it affect my credit even more? Do I look bad for trying to consolidate my debt? What is that about? Does that come into play when I'm trying to make a decision? Well, I have a £10,000 hole and I have nothing. Does that affect me? Does it make me look better financially or to the credit scoring gurus?
So every circumstance is individual. So I think if you are about to default, it makes better sense to consolidate than default.
Okay.
In terms from a credit rating perspective.
Okay.
But I would definitely speak to an advisor based on your individual circumstances, because another thing around good credit ratings and scorings is having too many applications. So just really understand what your behavior and the impact that it will have on your score before you make those decisions.
Yes, yes. And I think a key thing here is talking, asking for help, which can be very daunting. I mean, Jonathan touched on it to say you signpost someone and they don't go, so you're telling someone, oh, this service is there to help you, but then they don't go, to achieve that.
Can I just come in on that?
Of
I
course.
think that's such an important point. If we want people to access the support that they need, we need to make it easier. So if we're asking people to repeat their stories wherever they go, relive trauma, really have to trust somebody. So if you're going to ensure that those services are there, make sure they're wraparound. And I know we've got limited resources within the NHS, not-for-profit sector, everywhere. But really think about how your partnerships can build that in and can use technology to ensure that the client is not put in a position where they have to then go from pillar to post. So I think that's another thing that we need to think about.
That is so true. Wraparound support and wraparound looks like this, bring organizations together who, well, I can't do this, but guess what? Muna is doing debt. You're doing savings. How can we all pull together and provide a service that's holistic for users? And what are you finding, Nina, in that space? So are people saving more? Are they other, cause with what you do at Bloom Money, you have a bit of a picture on that.
It's interesting because what you were saying, Muna, about speaking to creditors about actually we need to be making room for people to actually live, to have a bit of savings. Because there are creditors out there that will say, I don't care if you have nothing left. Like, give me back my pound of flesh, right? And when we were building our product, so we run a community savings group, and you get a group of people that you trust together, and you determine the amount amongst the people that are in the group. And the most common number that we heard in our research was £100. So let's say the four of us got together and put £100 each month. But then I did a lot of work with the First Love Foundation, with a bunch of grassroots organizations, and we actually came to the conclusion we dropped the minimum allowed pay-in to £10. Now, from a business perspective, that makes no sense to us because we are going to lose money on it. But the way that we looked at it was actually, it's not about, whether or not we're making money in that particular instance. Oftentimes, if someone needs to drop down to £10 a month, a week, whatever, it is because some particular circumstance has hit them. So it might be temporary. But what I, as, the leader of this business, was very, very concerned with is, let's make sure that it's accessible and approachable so that if we start to build this muscle, I very much view savings as a muscle, right? If we're putting £10 a month, and that's what we can afford to put right now, great. We're going to get in the habit of it. We're going to put £10 in every month. And when things start to improve, or we're able to be more flexible, or the debts are paid off, maybe we increase it to £20, then 50. And that you can actually see the financial resilience growing with that pot. So that was one approach we had. I think it's also a very strange time right now because people, in the past, Moon and I have talked about how a lot of the Somali community will put in £1,000 a month into a pot. Obviously, times are tougher, so people are kind of pulling back. And yet, paradoxically, more people want to save with their community because it helps them in that immediate moment. So if the boiler breaks and I get my payout, I don't have to go get credit out. I can just use that. And then next month, I know I'm paying into this group savings. So it's kind of on both feet, actually. But I think the other thing, and we keep talking about communication and talking to people about it, we've seen oftentimes that people will use these savings club, we call them circles at Bloom, to pay off an existing debt. So they're using this, they're doing Hegbad, they're doing, Harambe, whatever, to save up such that they can pay off that debt. And I think there is something that I try to explain often to people who are not familiar with this method, that the support, we keep talking about support of your social group. You don't have to tell them that you're paying off debt. but the support of them being around you, doing it with them, knowing that they are also putting the money aside. I mean, we're going to go far together, right? So that's what we've been finding. And, hopefully things will all get better and everyone will be hearts and flowers again and we won't all be living in a crisis. But for now, we adjust and try and keep those habits going when we can.
I cannot emphasize support enough. Like, even from just being an entrepreneur, just having other people on the journey with you, there's an accountability that you can't explain. That, like, oh gosh, I'm not going to let Muna down.
Yeah.
I have this whole community and Muna, you know. So there's something about that support that even if you are going to default on putting the money into the circle, the fact that it's Jonathan, you're not putting it, who's you're letting down, will make you put it in. So there's a need for support is absolutely important. Oh, thank you so much. That was awesome. Did you want to add something to that?
No, there's one important thing I wanted to say about financial institutions. I think they let down communities. In the first place, no, this is true. In the first place, you borrow money, and I don't know whether for me they enjoy seeing people being in debt. No, seriously. What they should be doing more of is educating people.
Sure.
They should be investing in communities for financial educators for early interventions. I think waiting for the last minute when somebody is in arrears, can't afford to pay their debts and all that, is a wrong process. Whereas you're seeing a lot of, trusts, organizations are applying for money to help people in the communities, financial institutions. There's only a few banks you hear there's grants where they can educate people in the community. Whereas the reason why I'm saying they enjoy seeing people in debt is because once I'm in arrears, you have to pay. For them, I think they make money in that sense, but I think they need to reinvest in these communities. If my financial, I've got financial support, I'm earning enough, I'm not in debt, I've got more responsibility to manage my money, I'm going to borrow, I'm going to get a mortgage, I'm going to, I'm contributing to the bank in a positive way, but not thinking bank is a place where I can't go to access support. Bank is not a place I need to save my money with. So to me, I think there need to be more investment in local communities from banks themselves, because I think they are the end receivers of, people saving with them.
And just to add on to your point, the interesting thing is when you look at banks, because I've approached so many banks with the Grey Money Challenge, for example, they believe they're providing financial education. That is what they believe. Any bank you go to, they have a budget for financial education. They have singing and dancing apps. They put a lot of money into financial education. That is the strangest thing that I've discovered, because I was approaching banks and saying, guys, you need to be educating communities. Oh, we have a service in place. Do you do? Right. Where is it? And it's just doesn't speak to the people.
But again, Tynah, from my starting point when I was discussing this, I said there's a lot of services. And for them, in their eyes, it's okay to think we're investing a lot, but people aren't accessing that service.
Not just they're not accessing the service is not appropriate for my place in life. What are you doing telling me about mortgages when I don't know what a credit rating is? Yeah. Why are you telling me about mortgages at this point in time?
Make it make sense.
And make it make sense. So imagine you're talking to someone, having a conversation, and we talked about APRs, and the glazed over look of what am I going to have for dinner tonight came into play. When you see that look, it's time for you to take the conversation way back of how are you today? Yeah. What does money look like in your life? And there's this.
What are you having for
What are you having for dinner tonight? How did you get what you're having for dinner tonight? And I think bigger services don't recognize this.
I think the interesting thing is perception and reality. So the perception from the banks is they are pumping money into financial education. But the reality is, where is that being realized in the changing behaviors of the communities that they're supposed to be supporting? So I think what's interesting for me is a lot of the services are not culturally appropriate. they're not working with organizations that have that trusted source within the communities. And the other thing that slightly annoys me sometimes is the link to marketing and financial products. So financial education in universities and freshers fairs, it's all about open up your account with us. And I think there's some cynicism from people. People aren't stupid. And that level of engagement, as soon as they start to see marketing and being involved, and there are some very good banks that are doing some great work. But I think on a whole, the financial services sector could do with listening to organizations and specific communities, but also working with them side by side to either have them deliver those services or help them design the services they're delivering.
Absolutely. And I have to say, biasedly, that RBS are trying to do that, seeing as they're sponsoring the challenge.
But there are some good ones. There really are. And I think, showing my age, when I first started delivering advice and education, we would be speaking to one part of the bank, negotiating a debt. The other side of the bank would be calling our client, offering more credit. So there has been a lot of movement from the banking sector around how they support people who are in financial difficulty. But I think there's much more that can be done.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much. If there was one golden bullet that you would, a recipe for a golden bullet that would help our communities to just, breathe that bit better, what would it be? Let's start with you, Nina.
What is that? The unattributable African proverb, which everyone fights over which culture it comes from. If you want to go far, go alone. No, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I've had a lot of people argue and be like, no, that's not Kenyan. That's Nigerian.
I can tell you right now, it's Ugandan.
There we go.
It's Somali.
It's decided that it's
East African.
Yeah.
We can share.
It's East African. Yes, absolutely that. Find your support network in everything in life, but the people that you trust to open up that dialogue with.
Good one. Thank you.
I think for me, it's just a quick one because I'm more community-based. It's really getting to understand the real issues and needs for people, especially financial institutions. They need to do that. It's not about how much money you give to big organizations. Small organizations who understand themselves better, they understand their communities, and they know what should work for them. And that should be the focus.
Jonathan is on a mission today. You want the banks giving money to small organizations, and that's your bullet.
They should.
Thank you.
I completely agree. The backbone of community work are small grassroots organizations. I think for me, I would say, and furthering your theme, is get yourself a financial health check. So that could be through a friend, family member, where you can do it together and you can kind of have a night in, or go and seek help, or use a digital tool to help you just really understand where you are. And considering where we are in this cost of living crisis, there is so much support that is unclaimed, be it benefits, grants, discounts, all of these things. So there is, even if you just do a quick check, there is something that will benefit you financially that you can learn from. So I would do a health check, financial health check.
Nice. Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure having you for all the episodes.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Grow Your Money podcast. If you're looking to take actionable steps toward achieving your financial goals, visit MoneyMatiX.com. That is money, MATIX.com. And join our free Grow Your Money Challenge. Let's unite in the movement to inspire people to talk about money. Thank you for being a part of our community. We'll see you in the next episode.